everybody, this is Laura Kelly Walters here today with some really fun stuff on my work table. So we are going to be talking about Claude Monet and Impressionism. And we're going to use these Americana paints from DecoArt, some broccoli, some flowers to do some paint stamping and some paintbrushes to create a scene that's similar to what Claude Monet would have created. So we're going to go ahead and just jump in and get started. I'm going to move my brushes out of my palette. I like to use just a ceramic palette here. And we're going to start with some black and some white paint, because the first thing we're going to do is we're going to paint a bridge. A lot of the things that Claude Monet painted were outdoor scenes, landscape scenes, and he did them the way that he saw them, like from his impression, which is kind of where Impressionism comes from. So we're going to mix these together just a little bit to get kind of a gray. Not totally, because I want it to be kind of choppy when I paint, and we're just going to paint the line for a bridge. Then I'm going to go back over it, and I'm going to kind of smudge paint a little bit like this to make my bridge unique and special and all those great things. One thing that's really interesting about Claude Monet is that he changed a lot of the ways people saw art in France by painting the not so realistic and more of the impression of how he saw it. It opened up a whole new way of creating art. So he's kind of the leader of Impressionism, and that's going to be my bridge right there. One thing about him that I really love is a lot of his paintings are of the same bridge or the same scene over and over again, painted different times with different lighting. So he had to paint fast, and I like that because I'm not the most patient person in the world, so I like things that can be done quickly. But he had to paint fairly quickly in order to get his whole scene done before the sunset or the lighting changed. All right, so there's our bridge. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add some water down below under the bridge to create the kind of the river. I'm going to use 3 different colors of paint here. I'm going to use the Indian turquoise, and I'm going to put some of that here on my palette. And I'm going to use some turquoise blue. I'm going to put that right beside it. And then I'm also going to use a darker color, the true blue. Whoa, there we go. I'm going to put that there too. And I'm going to do the same thing here that I did with the black and the white. I'm not going to completely mix them together. I'm just going to kind of mix them a little bit. So you can see I'm just kind of doing this. And then I'm going to paint this with my broccoli. So I'm going to use my broccoli here, which kids will love this, or anybody, all ages. Like painting with vegetables is always super fun. But I'm going to dip that in my blues and get my broccoli good and covered, and then I'm going to do my water with the broccoli. And I'm going to go all around. I'm not going to go all the way up to the bridge because I'm going to leave some room there for some foliage, for some flowers and some bushes and some shrubs. But I'm going to get a good bit of coverage here for my water. And if there's some white in there, that's actually really good, and you'll see why here in just a little while. All right, now I'm going to do the same thing to create my sky up above. So I'm going to get a little bit more paint because I'm going to need it. I want my sky to be a little bit darker, so I'm going to do more of this darker color of blue. But this time I'm going to add a little bit of the white too. So this is the cool white. There are a bunch of different whites. This is one of my favorite ones to use. And I'm going to put that right there beside it. Put this back up out of my way. And now I've got my blue and my white. And there's still a little bit of those lighter blues in there too, and that's okay. But this is going to be my sky. And that white's going to give it a little bit of like cloudish look, like that there are clouds. And again, I'm not going to go all the way to the bridge because I'm leaving room there for some foliage for my flowers. So yeah, I'm totally painting with a piece of broccoli. Super, super fun. You can paint with so many different vegetables. This one just works great to give that look. Let me get some down here too that I'm going for. All right, so I'm done with my broccoli here. I'm going to move this out of the way, and I'm going to think about what I want to do in here for my foliage. So I have two different colors of green. I have a holly green and a sour apple, and I'm going to put those together on my palette here to create the same type effect that I've been doing. So I'm going to get my green and my other green. And there's already some white, and if there's some black in there that gets mixed in, that's totally okay. But I'm going to mix my greens here with a little bit of this white, and there is a little bit of black in there. I like that. That's going to work out fabulously. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to do my foliage, or my garden, or my plants, whatever you want to call it. And that's a great thing to talk about, is like, what is that called in a painting? And different people will call that different things. Claude Monet painted all different seasons. This is going to be more of like a spring summer look, but if you go back and you do a little research, you'll see that he's painted through all the different seasons. I'm going to use more of the dark on the top just to make it look a little bit different than the down below, and give it a little bit more of a textured look for the trees up here. I'm going to come all the way down to my bridge and fill all of that in. So the next step is the hardest step of all. It's the waiting. It's the waiting for this to dry. So I'm going to pause right here, and I'm going to go clean my brushes, and I'm going to let this dry for a few minutes, and then we'll take the next steps. All right, let's take the next step here on this creative journey, creating this moment in time, or this feeling of looking at this beautiful bridge that needs some details. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use these flowers here to paint to create our flowers. So how fun is that? We're going to use a couple different colors of pinks and purples. So we're going to use a carousel pink here and a vivid violet. So carousel pink and a vivid violet. I'm going to put those right here on my palette beside each other, like I do, and add a little bit of this cool white. There we go. And for this one, I am going to use the end of a paintbrush to just kind of stir in the middle a little bit till I get kind of that swirl look. It looks like candy, doesn't it? It looks so yummy. And I'm going to use this bigger flower right here as a stamp. So I'm going to dip it in my pink paint. And then I'm going to just kind of add lightly some flowers. And as I use it a couple times, some of the paint comes off, so it's less and less each time. So that is so, so cool. I'm going to do a little bit down below as well, under the bridge. And then I'm going to put this on my palette just because I don't want to get it all over my table. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get some white paint, or I actually have some white paint here. I'll just use this white edge right along here. And I'm going to use a paint brush. So I'm going to get a little bit of white paint, and I'm going to add a little bit of white into these flowers just to give them a little more personality and a little more character. And I'm going to mix up my technique of stamping with the flower and using a paintbrush there. And then I'm also going to go ahead and add to my bridge while I have this out. So I'm going to get a little bit more of this black paint. I'm going to put that on my palette. And I'm going to get some black and some white. And I'm going to kind of add a little bit of texture here to my bridge now that this grayish color is dry and ready for that. There we go. The great thing about painting on canvases is you can go over it time and time again until you get the look that you're looking for. So you can let it dry, and then you can put another layer of paint on and just keep adding until you get what it is that you want. And yeah, so you really can't mess up, which is a beautiful thing about making art. Claude Monet painted for 30 years. He was creating and making art, and he's one of my favorites. One of my favorite artists. I love all of the flowers and what we're going to add next, the lilies and the water lilies. So that is what we're leading right into here, is we're going to use another paintbrush, a little bit of a bigger one, and we're going to get just some white. and put it on the palette here. And some of the lighter green, which is the sour apple green. We're going to put it here beside it. And I'm going to go down here in the bottom where the water is. And this is where it's great that I have some of that white that was left behind from the broccoli painting, because I'm going to add a couple of places where there could be some water lilies in my water. Oh my gosh, they're so pretty. There we go. Just a couple. Don't want to overdo it. And now we're going to add to our flowers here in our foliage. We're going to add some purple. So I've got this really pretty color of lavender here. I'm going to put a little bit of that on my palette. And I'm going to use a different flower. So I have another flower here, and I'm just going to pinch it to grab it like a stamp. And I'm going to dip it in this purple, get a little bit of the white and pink, but mostly the purple. And I'm going to add a little bit of that to these flowers. And I'm also going to use that purple with a brush to add a little bit of color, a little white too, to my water lilies. I feel like there should be little frogs hopping in here, but we're not going to do that because I don't think he painted frogs. But I do love frogs. All right, there we go. So there we have it. We have used broccoli, and we've used flowers, and we've used paintbrushes, a canvas, your basic acrylic paints, to create an Impressionism-style painting, kind of like what Claude Monet would paint. And it's beautiful, and it's fun, and it's simple, and it's a great way to get started with learning about an artist and with creating a little masterpiece. So I hope you learned something fun today. I hope you'll make this, and if you do, I hope that you will put it up in a special place in your house so that you can love it.